Have you ever had a feeling in your gut that something was wrong, even when you couldn't explain why? This woman says she ignored that feeling for months. Then one morning she looked through her boyfriend's phone and discovered a side of him she never knew existed. I'm 21 years old. I've been dating my boyfriend for almost a year. For the first several months, everything felt perfect. We spent our time exploring rivers, hiking through forests, and taking spontaneous road trips with whatever gas money we had. It felt like we were building something real. Eventually, life pushed both of us out of our separate living situations. So we decided to move in together. At the time, it felt like the obvious next step. The apartment was tucked away in a mountain town. The rent was cheap. The scenery was beautiful. And for a while, life felt almost magical. He constantly told me things like, "I've never felt this close to anyone. I've been waiting my whole life for someone like you. I've never loved anyone the way I love you." Looking back now, those words hit very differently. Then things started changing. We argued on my birthday. Nothing major, but it felt different. A few weeks later, Valentine's Day arrived. I bought him a gift. He didn't get me anything. I told myself it wasn't a big deal, but for the first time, something felt off. Then the dreams started, night after night. I'd wake up feeling anxious, like my brain was trying to tell me something. Meanwhile, our relationship kept drifting. We stopped talking as much. The adventures disappeared. Most nights we just sat in silence. Every time I tried reconnecting, it only seemed to work temporarily. I tried everything. When I noticed him pulling away, I didn't get angry. I didn't accuse him of anything, I just tried harder. I bought him flowers one day because he once told me nobody had ever done that for him before. I remember how surprised he looked. Like it was something he'd always wanted but never expected to receive. Part of me hoped it would bring us closer together. But after that day, he never bought flowers for me, not once. I started taking him out to dinner. Earlier in our relationship, we'd spend hours talking over food. Those nights had felt special. Like no matter what was happening in our lives, we always found our way back to each other. So I tried recreating those moments. I planned dates, picked places I thought he'd enjoy, sat across from him hoping to feel that connection again. Sometimes it felt like it worked for a little while. Then we'd go right back to where we started. Every evening I cooked dinner. I made sure there was food waiting when he was hungry. I made sure the apartment felt like a home. I made time for him whenever I could. Even on nights when I was exhausted. Even on days when I didn't feel appreciated. I kept telling myself relationships go through rough patches. That if I just put in a little more effort, we'd find our way back. But the harder I tried, the more distant he seemed. Conversations got shorter. The laughter disappeared. The adventures stopped. And eventually, it felt like I was carrying the entire relationship on my shoulders. Like I was fighting for something that only one person was trying to save. The worst part wasn't the arguments. It wasn't even the silence. It was watching someone who once seemed so excited to build a life with me slowly stop showing up for it. Then something strange happened. One afternoon, my cat somehow managed to get into a storage area we rarely touched. I heard a crash from the other room and walked in to find a mess scattered across the floor. A plant had been knocked over. Papers were everywhere. A few old boxes had fallen from a shelf. At first, it just looked like another disaster caused by curious cats. But while I was picking everything up, I noticed something buried underneath the clutter, an old journal. The cover was worn and faded from age. It looked like something that hadn't been opened in years. I probably should have put it back. I probably should have respected his privacy. But something about it pulled at me, so I opened it. The first few pages seemed harmless. Random thoughts, notes, bits and pieces of old memories. Then I started finding poems. Not about me, about one of his exes. And they weren't casual entries. They weren't the kind of poems someone writes and forgets about. They were emotional, passionate, obsessive, page after page describing how beautiful she was, how much he missed her, how deeply he loved her. The way he wrote about her made her sound like the center of his universe. I sat there reading in complete silence, because in nearly a year together, he had never written anything remotely like that about me, not even close. The words were intimate, vulnerable, raw. The kind of words I had spent months hoping to hear myself. The kind of effort I had been begging for without ever saying it out loud. And suddenly, I couldn't stop comparing. Comparing those pages to our relationship. Comparing those poems to the silence that now filled our apartment. Comparing the man who wrote those words to the man sitting on our couch every night barely speaking to me. The more I read, the worse I felt. Not because he had loved someone before me. Everyone has a past. What hurt was realizing he seemed capable of giving someone a version of himself that I had never received. By the time I closed the journal, I felt sick. And for the first time, I started wondering if the person I thought I knew was actually real. A few days later, I woke up before sunrise with that feeling again. The same feeling that had been following me for weeks. The dreams, the anxiety, the constant sense that something wasn't right. I tried to ignore it. I told myself I was overthinking, that I was letting my insecurities get the best of me. But this time the feeling wouldn't go away. It sat in my chest like a weight. Every instinct I had was screaming that there were answers somewhere. Answers I wasn't going to like. For nearly an hour, I just laid there staring at the ceiling, arguing with myself. Part of me didn't want to know. Part of me was terrified of what I might find. But eventually curiosity won. I picked up his phone. At first, I almost felt relieved. There was no obvious evidence of cheating. No secret messages, no active conversations with other women. Nothing that immediately confirmed my worst fears. For a moment, I thought maybe I had been wrong about everything. Then I kept scrolling, and that's when things started getting strange. I found old conversations, old relationships, old situationships. People from years before we had ever met. At first, it seemed harmless. Everyone has a past. Everyone has old messages, but the more I read, the more uncomfortable I became. Because the things he was saying to these women sounded familiar, very familiar. The pet names, the compliments, the promises, the declarations of love. Sentence after sentence felt like something I had heard before. Something he had said to me. I found messages where he told someone she was unlike anyone he'd ever met. Another where he said he'd never felt this way before. Another where he described a connection that felt destined. And another, and another, and another. Each conversation felt like reading a different version of our relationship. Different woman, different year, same words, same script. The things I thought were uniquely ours suddenly didn't feel unique at all. I wasn't reading proof that he had cheated. I was reading proof that the story I believed about us might not be true. And with every message I opened, the man I thought I knew felt a little more like a stranger. By that point, my hands were shaking. But I still hadn't found the thing that would completely change everything. That discovery was still waiting for me. Then I discovered a hidden folder. At first, I didn't think much of it. Just another album tucked away on his phone. But when I opened it, my stomach dropped. There weren't a few pictures. There weren't a few old memories. There were hundreds of files. Photos, videos, the bad kind. Years of his life sitting right in front of me. I kept scrolling. And every time I thought I had reached the end, there was more relationships, more memories. More versions of a man I had never met. These weren't random files. These were real experiences, real people, entire chapters of his life that he had never shared with me. The deeper I looked, the more confused I became. The journal, the distance between us, the feeling that something wasn't adding up. It all came rushing back at once. The more I looked, the less I recognized the man I thought I knew. And the worst part was, I wasn't upset because he had a past. Everyone has a past. I was upset because everything suddenly felt dishonest. The things he told me, the things he left out, the way he described himself, the way he described our relationship. None of it felt solid anymore. For months, I had been trying to understand why I felt so disconnected from him. Now I was staring at that screen wondering if I had ever really known him at all. When he woke up, I confronted him. There wasn't any point pretending anymore. I had seen too much. I asked him why he still had all of it. The photos, the videos, the messages, the journal. I asked why so many things didn't match the stories he had told me. Why he had made himself sound like a completely different person. Why so much of what I believed about him suddenly felt uncertain. At first, he just sat there staring at me. Then he broke down. He started crying almost immediately. He told me he was sorry. He told me none of it meant anything anymore. That it was all from another chapter of his life. He deleted everything right in front of me. The photos, the videos, the hidden folder. Then he threw the journal away. Over and over he kept saying the same thing. That he couldn't lose me, that he loved me, that none of those people mattered anymore. He insisted he hadn't looked at any of it while we were together, that he'd been focused entirely on me, that the future he wanted was the one we were building together, and maybe he believed every word he was saying. Maybe he was telling the truth, but by then, the damage was already done. Because even though the files were gone, the questions weren't. And once trust starts to crack, it's hard to pretend the fracture isn't there. Now I'm stuck. We share a home. Our finances are connected. I don't have savings. I don't have family nearby. Walking away isn't as simple as packing a bag and leaving. Every option feels impossible. And I still don't know whether this relationship can actually be repaired. Part of me wants to believe him. Part of me wants to believe that people can make mistakes, that people can change, that maybe everything I've discovered belongs to a version of him that no longer exists. But another part of me can't stop thinking about everything I've seen. The journal, the conversations, the hidden folder, the feeling that I've spent months trying to earn effort and affection that seemed to come naturally in his past. I keep asking myself if trust can be rebuilt once it's broken. If honesty can exist after so many things were left unsaid. Some days I look at him and see the person I fell in love with. Other days I look at him and feel like I'm living with a stranger. And honestly, I don't know which version is real anymore. So now I'm asking the internet, what would you do? Was I overreacting? Could you rebuild trust after this? Comment your opinion below.